For the first time in my life, I've truly been enjoying work. Not paid work or creative work. Not necessarily even productive work. Just work. Work for its own sake, without a particular goal or purpose. Not because I have to or because someone asked me to. Just work. Let me explain. For the past few months, my life has been a whirlwind of activity. Every day has been a new roller coaster ride of emotions. And for the record, I've always hated roller coasters. Now, it hasn't been all bad. I mean, there have certainly been some wins here and there along the way, but that's only because challenges tend to provide opportunities to learn and grow. But at this point, I'm getting pretty tired of all the learning and growing. I'm sure someday I'll look back and appreciate these experiences. With hindsight, I may realize that this was all some sort of turning point. But for right now, I need a break. I need some rest. And though it may sound counterintuitive, that's where the work comes in. You see, I've come to realize that much of my emotional pain and suffering has been all in my head, so to speak. Not because what I'm going through isn't real, but because in my mind, I've been living through a myriad of possible, yet purely hypothetical, future scenarios. An excruciating barrage of what-ifs. And while many of those scenarios are possible, likely, and in some cases even certain, none of them are real right now in this moment. And to make matters worse, I've also been spending a lot of my time anguishing over regrets and guilt for the past. Things that can't be changed, but more importantly, things that no longer exist today. If I were to prepare a list of the top 100 causes of stress in my life, I bet only about 10 of them would actually be actively occurring. The rest would either be reconstructions of past events from faded memories, or the conjuring up of new events from my imagination. But either way, they aren't real. So in order to take a break from 90% of my stress and anxiety, it follows that all I have to do is figure out a way to be more present in the current moment. I need to start living in my actual life, rather than in my imagination. Or in other words, I need to get back to reality. And for that, I've found that short periods of completely pointless physical work can be surprisingly effective. And I think it's because when I'm working, I can't help but focus on the task at hand. The strain in my muscles, the sweat on my brow. I notice my quickened breaths and my growing thirst. After a while, I may sense my stomach growling as I slowly burn through my breakfast. Perhaps I'll discover a painful new blister or a stubbed toe, the scorching sunshine on my skin, or the gentle breeze through my hair. All of these seemingly normal feelings are somehow intensified while working, and all of them, when combined, serve as a pretty adequate distraction from my otherwise cluttered thoughts. They don't take away any of my problems, but they do force me to focus on the current moment, and in doing so, allow me some much-needed reprieve from my worries and doubts. Burying yourself in work has long been popular advice for someone dealing with difficult issues, but what I'm suggesting is slightly different. Because, as I mentioned, I'm not talking about my job or my hobby. I'm talking about completely non-productive work. Something otherwise pointless. You see, I've found working in my garden to be tremendously beneficial for both my body and my mind. Conversely, pouring myself into a creative project is equally positive. But that type of work is typically focused on some future goal, a successful harvest, or a satisfying form of personal expression. So even though that work can be extremely constructive, it's still not letting me live fully in the present moment. But on the other hand, something like digging a hole only to fill it back in again is temporary. It's entirely about the present, because it's not about the hole. It's about the digging. It's about the reality of my actual life in this moment, rather than my imaginary future. It feels like a form of mindfulness meditation, at least to someone who doesn't yet know much about meditating. Now, I'd like to reiterate that this does not actually solve any of my problems. But it does remind me that most of what I perceive as problems are actually just worst-case scenarios. It gives me a chance to breathe and remember that, for the moment at least, everything is okay. And I'm sure there are far better ways to ground yourself in the present. There's likely a multitude of different techniques that don't require a shovel and won't get your hands dirty, but nevertheless, this method seems to be working for me today. And so I hope that by sharing, it might help some of you as well. So if, like me, you've been spending too much time obsessing over a hypothetical future or anguishing about the unchangeable past, try to take a few minutes to do some pointless physical work and see if it helps bring you back to reality as well, even if just for the moment.